everybody, and welcome back to another Monday evening show. So, first of all, I hope this finds you well wherever you are. We are streaming this one tonight across most of the platforms. We're on YouTube. Hello, YouTubers. The Facebooks, the new Mark Zuckerberg repented Facebook. And of course, we're on our free speech platforms of X and Getter and Rumble. So again, whatever platform you're on, I hope you're well. Before we get into tonight's main sort of topic, just hi UK Freedom Campaign. Just a couple of reminders. Do check out my daily Substack. You'll be able to get a link to that below, hopefully, or it'll be brought up on screen, however we do it. But a lot of content going out there on a daily basis, so it's a good way to find some stuff. I did a Substack the other day on I think I called it something like Hollywood Satanic Elite, something like that. Here we go. Here's the Substack, folks, and you can find. I've got one on Sir Keir, HIV, and Big Pharma. Yeah, do check that one out, and you'll see there's loads of stuff over there. And hopefully it's interesting, it's entertaining, and it makes some points. So do check out the Substack. And of course, suffice to say, we always have the daily podcasts, which go out every day as well. So you're getting all that content, as well as the stuff I put out in social media, as well as this stuff. And also, again, before we jump in, just some people have been asking me for a copy of the live show that Jed and I put on in London just over, I guess, 12 days ago, whatever it was. And there's been a delay in that, and that's down to a bereavement within the circle of the people who are doing the video thing. So I'm sure you'll understand. Hopefully we'll get the completed video and it'll be made available to you on my Substack in due course, and you'll be able to get to see the fun and games we had with Ben Abib, with Baroness Kate Hoey. It was good fun, and my friend Aileen Quinton as well, and a cast of millions. So if you were at it, I hope you enjoyed it. We were trying to put the world to right, and that's exactly what we're going to do now. So what I want to talk to you guys tonight is something that it's been in the media for the last couple of days, particularly yesterday and overnight into today. And it concerns, I guess, a big political debate that's going on, or is it? And that is between Reform and the Conservatives. So Reform v Conservatives. And this all kind of came out on the Sunday papers yesterday. Now, I think, yes, we got a headline. Let's just bring up a headline, which, yes, this one here, I think, which basically, yeah, this is the headline. And this caused a lot of consternation. Nigel Farage paves the way for a Reform Tory, a mega party, a mega monster party, with Boris that would trounce stumbling Sir Keir Starmer. So that was the headline in the Mail on Sunday. Now, any of you guys who follow politics should realize that the Sunday press is all about flying flags. It's all about flying flags and see what happens. Hi, Harry. Hi, Tommy. Hi, hello there, Chris Davis. Good friend. Good to see you. The Sunday papers flies flags, i.e. Political interests, plant things, the media push them out and see what happens. So that story appeared, and then this response came pretty damn quick from Reform. This is how Reform responded to that suggestion. And you can read it there. There are absolutely no circumstances, if we can bring it up a bit, that would even be better. I can read it. There are absolutely no circumstances in which Reform would ever do a pact with Boris Johnson or the Conservative Party. Johnson was responsible for the betrayal of Brexit, true. He threw open Britain's borders, yeah, pretty true, and collapsed standards in public life through his lack of integrity. Reform intends to win the next election, repair the damage created by Johnson, the Tories and Labour. We will then return Britain to greatness. So that's what Reform was saying yesterday. Now, I have to tell you, there's nothing in that statement that I disagree with. I agree with everything. Whoever wrote that, it could have been me in some regards anyway, insofar as it's absolutely right. And the bit that surprised me was that I saw on social media, there are obviously some what I would call loyal, diehard Boris fans out there. And they think, yeah, but Boris, he reaches the parts that others can't from the Conservative Party point of view. And I'm not sure that's right anymore. I mean, everything Reform said about Boris Johnson is right. He betrayed us over Brexit. He betrayed us over Ukraine. He showed a lamentable sense of ethics in government. And Ultron, good to see him. Ultron, by the way, over on YouTube, says there isn't a Conservative Labour Party, both WEF rebranded, and I agree with that. But there are still people out there. Trust me, I see them who think, but Boris, but no, but Boris nothing. Reform are right. Boris Johnson, I think, is a busted flush. He's not an MP. Furthermore, I don't think he's going to do diddly squat apart from enrich himself on trying to push things like war in Ukraine. So the Boris Johnson thing, I honestly feel, I'm sorry if that offends some of my more conservative-minded followers, but honestly, Boris is gone. But let's go back to that original story. Could there be a realignment between the Conservatives and Labour? And that's where this next chart comes into play. So I wonder, might this have been something that triggered that particular story that appeared in the Mail on Sunday? Here's a poll. Oh, I see. So this, it's a poll. I know it's years ahead, but it's still a poll. It's still indicative of something. And it shows that Reform are in the lead amongst the electorate, people who would vote. They're in 26%. That's up 12% on last July. The Tories under Kemi are sinking. They're down 1% on what they got last July. And then there's Labour. Look at that. Labour down 12%. So isn't it interesting? Reform up 12, Labour down 12. Actually down 12 points and into third. And there are other polls around, but they mostly all show this kind of trend. So the trend is basically Reform are ahead of the other parties in the polls. Now, it's something the BBC doesn't like to talk about too much, but you and I can talk about it. So Reform are in the lead, and I think that Reform are on a bit of a roll, because the other thing that happened yesterday, is that you recall back in December, Reform managed to overtake the Conservatives in terms of the number of members, with the 135,000 members. That was back in December. Can't remember what date, but it was in December anyway. So Reform membership exceeded that of the Conservative Party. Well, guess what? Yesterday, this happened. 200,000 party members, as Reform called the people who are signed up to the party. 200,000 of them. It's a big number, and it's doesn't matter what you think, folks. Doesn't matter if you hate Storm or you hate Farage or anything else. It's still a big achievement. It tells you something. And I seen Nigel Farage was saying today that the next stop is to get over 300,000, because the Labour Party has 307,000 members. 307, yeah. So if Reform can go past that in, let's say, a couple of months, then, or by the summer, say, they would be the biggest political party in the country. Here we go. This is the sticker, or the ticker, I should say, and it shows Reform 204,217. By the time we finish this broadcast, that number will have reached. So look, you can see it, I can see it, Reform can see it, the Conservatives can see it, Labour can see it. The momentum is with Reform. But there's a reason. I mean, when we look at, I want to look at the Conservatives in particular in this little sort of show we're doing. I saw a video of Kemi Badenoch talking in the Commons. I think it was on Friday of last week. I wanted to play you this. We should really have funeral music playing in the background as she speaks, because I think she's eulogizing the Conservative Party as if it was dead. Because this is what we're going to play you now. It's completely, out of sync with what I believe ordinary conservative with a small c people want. And when you see this, this is why the Conservative Party will sink further in the polls. And as they sink further in the polls, reform will go up in the polls. That seems to me almost like a law of physics. So let's just play Kemi showing how out of touch she is. Play.
The UK is a multi-faith, multi-ethnic, multicultural success story, and we believe that many of our greatest strengths derive from the diversity of our population. One only has to look at our brilliant NHS, one of the largest and most diverse employers in Europe, to see the benefits of being an open, tolerant, and welcoming country.
Yeah, and that's the problem. You heard that. She welcomes diversity, multiculturalism. It's brilliant. Kemi can't get enough of it. Look at the success it's made of her country. Have you seen the success? Did you see for example, what happened in part of London today? The diverse guy with a machete or whatever threatening people from the top of a building. Oh yeah, it's been a great success. Kemi doesn't get it. She gets not. This is the whole problem I have with the Conservative Party. Kemi hasn't a clue what she's talking about. She's in the same way as Farage and Reform are a lot more locked in, let's say, than Badenoch. She's clueless. And then she goes on to say, "Oh, the NHS, oh, it sickens my happiness. The NHS is this great totem pole. We must, bow down and worship the NHS." And it's a great example of diversity. No, it's not a great example of diversity. And Jed rightly points out here, over 1 million people working in it, and people still die because of incompetence. Absolutely, Jed. The Ultron says it's so diverse, we need 109,000 annual DEI roles in the NHS. Yeah, absolutely, Ultron. I mean, the NHS, to me, and this might sound a bit radical, but the NHS sums up everything that's wrong in the UK. It's incompetent, it's bloated, it doesn't put the interests of the patients first. It puts its own interests first. It performed abysmally over the so-called COVID and all of that. So the NHS is a major problem, and Kemi thinks it's a great thing. And this is why politically she's out of touch, baby. She's way out of touch. And under her stewardship, there's no chance. There's not a snowball's chance in hell of the Conservative Party gaining traction. I mean, she did another interview, by the way, over on YouTube. Some of you may have seen it, Jed. I think it was with trigonometry, and that was another car crash. And all the time, she demonstrates that she doesn't know really what to do with the party that somehow she's gotten in control of. But to be fair to Kemi Badenoch, it's not just her, is it? If it was Robert Jenrick tomorrow, say, leading the Conservative Party, that party itself is still lumbered with a track record of 14 years of miserable failure, serial betrayal of everything, and incompetence, to the backbone. So I don't see how there's any way forward with the Conservatives. And this brings us back really to how we started in this one, because of course you have this story coming out saying, "Oh, the Farage wants to link up with us." So, no. This was, I believe, a planted story. This whole Farage, Boris Johnson. This was a planted story by Kemi and her supporters, and it was blown out. And Jed's right; it's a busted flush. They are a busted flush, and I suspect that there's millions of people who historically voted for the Conservative Party, and they are moving, if they haven't already moved, to Reform, which might explain certain sensitivities Nigel Farage has on certain issues. But regardless of that, the fact of the matter is that I think the Tories are dead in the water. I don't think, because anything anyone says that's a Conservative leader, a future Conservative leader, people are just going to say, well, 14 years. If they say we're going to stop immigration, you had 14 years to sort it. What happened? If they say, oh, we're going to fix the economy, you had 14 years. You know what I mean? This is where Labour, and I despise Labour. Labour, a bunch of globalist communists. I despise them, but they're right in their criticism of the Conservative. Two rights or two wrongs don't make a right. So Labour's wrong and the Conservatives are wrong. And this is where, of course, Reform are scoring, because they've positioned themselves in this kind of centre ground of like competent Conservatives, and slightly more caring Conservatives as well. And this is where I think they're going to take more votes from the declining Conservatives. They're going to take votes from Labour. They've already taken that 12%. A collapse in the poll seems to have come from Labour. And here's the other thing. The reason that that's come from Labour is I don't think that's the Labour vote. That 12% of votes that you've seen Reform seemingly cannibalize from Labour, those are actually, I think, originally Conservative voters who have got buyer's regret over Keir Starmer. And I mean, can you blame them? Is there anybody watching this who thinks, yeah, Starmer's done such a good job? I mean, he's come in and he's been amazing. He's been amazing. Oh, by the way, did you see him getting his HIV test today? Did you see that? Because I'm on YouTube, I'll not say anything, but I thought that was interesting. Curious as well. But, Labour are absolutely out of touch with the electorate, and the Conservatives not much better. Ultron says, I wish MPs were more like you, David, devil's advocate and all choices made, but you're not utterly corrupt. So that's about, yeah. I'm afraid the one thing I learned very quickly about politics is that how it corrupts, and it does corrupt. And you've actually seen it. Did you see the two stories about talking about Labour? The two Labour MPs, who the first one has been suspended. I forget his name, but it doesn't matter. I think it was called. I don't know if you can bring up the story, Jed. He was suspended for the comments he put out in his WhatsApp group. Did you see that guy? I mean, he had to walk the plank over those. But the funny thing was, he wasn't the only guilty party, because in that WhatsApp group, that this guy who sort of Starmer instantly suspended, he was, I'll not repeat his language because I don't want to use that sort of language, but he basically was hoping that that the elderly die before the next general election. That's what he hoped for. So he had to resign over that one. But then this other guy, another one of them, this other guy, Oliver Ryan, he amused me. I actually tweeted at him yesterday because he was in the same group, and it was alleged that he had said certain horrible things as well. Turns out he did. So now he's been suspended. So we've got two Labour MPs suspended in 24 hours. Tell me, who's the nasty party? Tell me who the nasty party is in 2025, because it looks to me that the Labour Party is the messages were, it shows, look, there's an argument here goes on. These were hateful, nasty messages treating the electorate. He's apologized. He's apologized because he was caught out, just like the other guy. These guys, Andrew Gwynn. Andrew Gwynn was the first one. And now we've got this guy as well. And they've both resigned because they've been caught out. And when they say they're sorry, what they mean is, we're sorry because you caught us out. Now we hate you. Yeah, they absolutely. I've been telling you this for years. This lot hate you guys. Andrew Gwynn, his messages were egregious. He was a health minister too, FYI. This is the health minister telling his constituents behind their backs that he hates them and he hopes they all die. Now, if this had been a few years ago, you would have had the media going, the Tory party, it's a nasty party. It's a nasty party. I don't notice too much criticism of Labour beyond the fact that Sir Keir has taken decisive action and he suspended them both. Okay, call a by-election. Call a by-election in both constituencies. Why don't you do that? Well, they definitely won't do that. And you know why they won't do that? They won't do that because even though these are strong Labour strongholds, who knows what might happen if there was a vote tomorrow in those two constituencies. So these guys are still earning their MP salary and expenses and all the rest of it. It's just that they've been suspended from the Labour Party. I think if Starmer had anything about him, he would move for election for by-elections. Ultron says, "Pity Starmer wasn't in that group." Yeah, it is otherwise, but no, he's too busy having an HIV test to be sending WhatsApp messages. But you get the sense that that Labour's collapsing. And people, it's not just you and me that see it. Lots of people see it, and that's reflected in the opinion polls. So Labour is getting massively unpopular. The Tories just cannot resurrect themselves. I'm afraid they've deadlined. If they were a patient in the NHS, they'd turn the machine off because the patient clearly has no life left in it, which leaves reform. And of course, the thing about reform is, I mean, you know, I do have issues with reform. I do, and I'm not shy of saying it. By the way, my issues don't. When I say reform, I don't know. A lot of things in reform are good. It's the leadership of reform in terms of Nigel Farage where I think there are questions. But then again, you shouldn't deny the fact that Nigel Farage has high recognition value. He's a very fluent political operator. And the only thing I would say is, did you see there was an opinion poll held, YouGov brought out today? I haven't spoken about this yet, but in this opinion poll, it was asking the public, oh, who do you think would be the best leader between Starmer and Badenoch, between Starmer and Farage, between Farage and the other political leaders. And actually, Nigel Farage didn't come out and tops in this one. So it is kind of interesting that although I do think Farage is a very competent operator, I think people like, particularly the likes of Rupert Lowe, are really knocking it out of the park. And Elon Musk's very much on top of what Rupert Lowe's doing. So I think that's good. And that obviously helps reform overall as well. And again, I mean, I'm not a fan of the reform chairman, Zia Yusuf, but he did put out a very good post earlier today talking about the fact that, all the stuff we see in the US with US aid. And I mean, it's incredible what's happening there. The exposure of the deep state and the vast monies that it pays itself and it pays its minions. It's incredible to behold. Some of the stuff is just staggering. But we need our version of that. You can bet your bottom dollar if there's money being channeled, for example, in USA have given just about 5 billion in the last couple of years to Bill Gates's Gavi. Now, do you think the British government might have given some money to Bill Gates's Gavi? And you can pick your charity. It seems to me the whole NGO, that whole sector, is basically operating by feeding parasitically off your taxes and my taxes. I think that anyway. And so we need a British Doge. And I've seen in some regards, there's a sort of a recognition that amongst reform that we do need that. But I mean, the Tories can't speak because they've indulged it for 14 years. Labour can't speak because the money's being funneled off into their supporter base in terms of NGOs as well. So I think the situation is, Tommy Trump says, George Carlin, it's all just a show. Yeah, well, there's an element of truth in that as well, what George Carlin said. Yeah, it is. So much of it is, unfortunately, such a show. But it does affect real lives. That's the other thing, in all of this. So I want to see the UK move beyond the awful uni party of Labour and the Conservatives. And if that means that reform is the best vehicle, then maybe this is where we do need to listen to the gentleman I was on stage with just under 2 weeks ago, and that is Mr. Ben Habib, because Ben makes the point that, there's a lot of good stuff in reform, but there's other things that could be improved. Some of it's strange stuff. We don't have time to talk about it now. I don't want to play a lengthy clip of Ben because it'll disrupt my flow. But he was talking about some of the oddities concerning Nigel Farage, such as Nigel is seen as Mr. Brexit, because he was a major force in helping us get Brexit. But by the same token, Nigel knew that in 2019, Boris Johnson betrayed Brexit by selling out Northern Ireland, where I live, and leaving us behind in the European single market and subject to the European Court of Justice. Now, Ben pointed, and Rupert pointed this out to Nigel back in 2020. Nigel didn't want to know. He didn't want to know. So I think if I'm trying to appeal to your reason, what I'm sort of saying is that there's no such thing as a perfect political party, but there are movements and there are moments in history. And at this moment in history, we've seen it happen across the Atlantic. We've seen MAGA get into power, and it's just changing the world. And that obviously is the power of the US that we're seeing manifest in so many ways under Donald Trump, which I'm loving. I'm loving it all. It's brilliant to see. You know, every day Trump says something that absolutely triggers him. Jed is saying that Farage did say last night in a live show he regrets standing down for Boris. Yeah, well, that's fair enough. But the point about him is he should also acknowledge the fact that he says Brexit's been done. It's not been done. Brexit ain't done till all of the UK leaves the European Union. I mean, that's a basic one. And I'm curious why Nigel finds that so hard to acknowledge. But it's not about Nigel Farage's shortfallings I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is, he's not done. So therefore, Jed, on that basis, I hope he will work with, for example, some Northern Irish MPs to remove the Irish Sea border, and that means a confrontation with Brussels. Do remember, the problem in this isn't Nigel Farage, and it's not even not the Reform Party. The problem is the European Union. Let's put it where it is. The EU, the European Union, deliberately left Northern Ireland in the single market so that 5 years later, it can swagger along and Stormer can swagger into it, and they can start having a chin wag about how can we increase cooperation for growth, economic growth. Economic growth, the thing that Rachel Reeves is looking for, but she can never find. For some reason, she can never find any growth. But Farage is trying to pretend that, oh yes, but if we get closer to the European Union, then we will have growth. What you'll have if you get closer to the European Union, Keir Starmer, is sanctions. You're going to get sanctioned. Did you see today, again, another brilliant example? Donald Trump's brought the hammer down on steel imports. Anybody importing steel into the US is 25% off the top in terms of tariffs. Now, I don't know if the UK imports anything. I'm not sure if it does or not. I think the major importers of steel into the US are Canada and Mexico. So it's another hammer blow to Trudeau and Mexico. But I did hear the guy in charge of spokesman for the free movement we'll talk about, the spokesman for the British steel industry saying, oh, this is bad. This is bad, these tariffs. And I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. People don't understand that Donald Trump has come in and he's tearing up the rule book and he's getting stuff done. And Musk is getting stuff done. And you're going to find all the other guys are going to get stuff done as well. This time, Trump 2.0 is like the original one on steroids, as they actually go about the business of reshaping not just the United States, but the world. But I want to see the United Kingdom reset. That's my point. And that's why, despite its imperfections, reform seems to me to be the best and only plausible vehicle that we have. Now, it's 2025. There's not an election to 2029. Stuff could happen. I don't know what the future holds. If I did, I would be, I'd be a multimillionaire, right? But all I can be confident is that at this point, as we draw things down, it seems to me that, well, reform are probably going to be the vessel that gets us furthest. in terms of taking down the Uni Party. But there's a mountain for reform to climb as well. I mean, they don't have the same infrastructure that the Conservatives have, but they're building it. And I think they are building lots of things. Skull and the Brave says Brexit should be Farage's trump card on all of this. Yeah, it should be, but because the Tories sold us out, Labour never wanted it, and Farage did want it. So absolutely, and I really hope that. But it's not just on Brexit. I want to see reform stand apart. I want them, for example, on a whole raft of issues. Immigration being notably one of them. Deportation. There's 1.2 million, or roughly 1.2 million illegals here in the UK. I want them out. Every one of them. Bye-bye. Gone. All 1.2 million. Nigel said that was impossible. It's difficult, yeah. But I'm afraid, there's an interesting comment. FDYN3 said, afraid to say, Farage is too old now. Started something good, but needs to get out for younger blood. Well, you might say that about me as well. I started young and now got old. But I take a point. I mean, there is talent within reform. I would like to see Ben Habib back in reform. I would like to see less of the infighting that I do see going on between. I mean, the reform need to show a little bit of modesty as well. So it's great that they're doing well. I salute the 200,000 members. I salute the fact they're ahead in the polls. I salute all of that. But listen, they don't get a green card that gets them out of jail on every issue. Nobody gets that, and you shouldn't let anyone give you that. Because do you remember back in? I'm gone over the 30 minutes. But anyway, I'm going now, so stick with me. What's that? Aldrin says, if you want free money, free movement, free money, free food, free phones, get a dinghy. Yeah, absolutely. And Sir Keir will give you a comfortable billet, free food. Don't have to worry about your heat. You're not going to be like pensioners. You have to worry about can the heater eat. You have to worry about that. You're going to be looked after. So I think that the issue is. We have to make sure that reform is further adapted, as it undoubtedly will be. And maybe it will be encouraged by Donald Trump actually doing the things, actually deporting, actually reinforcing the border, actually boosting his economy. I mean, there's a chance that Trump might decide to actually remove income tax. These are the big radical thoughts that we need to have. And I'm sure in Reform HQ, there are people who've got the intellectual ability to look at those things and turn them into policies. What I don't want is reform to be a little bit better than the Conservatives. I want it to be a lot better than the Conservatives, and it can be a lot better than the Conservatives. And it's got this really interesting space, because as you saw in the poll at the beginning, I wondered if we can just bring up that poll again that shows where reform is. I think this says so much, because this poll, because you can see there that really it's not Conservative voters that reform's taken. It's Labour voters. And I seen that Zia Youssef basically said this yesterday. He said, we've done the Conservatives and now we're coming for you, Labour. But as you can see, they've already come for Labour. I mean, that 12% is incredible. Although, again, I think that is shy Tory voters who lent Stormer their vote, have come to regret it, obviously. And now they're saying, oh, right, next time round, it's going to be reform for us. So, so it's an interesting dynamic, this in politics, in British politics. And I think it's influenced heavily by what happens in the United States. So I'm hoping as Donald Trump does more and more bold things, that will make Nigel Farage and the reform leadership bolder and bolder in what they say. They should also exercise a degree of humility, and I don't like to see the visceral attacks on Ben Habib. Don't think that's appropriate. If gentlemen can understand how to disagree agreeably, it would be one way of looking at it. But whichever way, I can understand Nigel Farage saying, hey, listen, we're ahead in the polls with 200,000 members. What are we doing wrong? And he's right. You're not doing anything wrong, but you could do even better. But you've got, I mean, there is time ahead. I don't. Jed says the average Joe just wants something different. He's fed up with the BS from the Uni Party. Absolutely, and amen to that. We're all fed up from the Uni Party, and in the States, Donald Trump is smashing up the Uni Party. Because let's be honest, over there, all my American friends, you know that the Republicans and the Democrats are basically, different sides of the same coin. They're the same thing. It's a Uni Party. MAGA is different, and MAGA is what's made the difference. So I really, really hope that what we're going to get in the UK is a MAGA reform party. And you can see in places like Scotland. I mean, Scotland always fascinates me because Scotland is historically viscerally anti-conservatives. I mean, doesn't matter if the Conservatives discovered a cure of cancer for Scots, the Scots still wouldn't vote for them because they can't stand it. They can't stand the Conservatives, right? But reform is polling actually quite well in Scotland. And what seems to be going to happen in Scotland the next election is Labour's going to lose their seats. The SNP are going to pick up seats, which is a shame. But hopefully reform can also come in and start to assert a presence in Scotland. And that's because, as we said at the beginning of this broadcast, the Tories are dead in the water and they're not coming back. So forget Kemi Badenoch and her sensible policies. Forget that. It's a busted flush. It's not happening. And Labour, well, where's Labour going? I mean, seriously, does anyone think Labour's going to? Oh, yeah. Because, yeah, I did see this poll. Now, this is one we're definitely going to have to use magnification here to see. But this was, if you take those percentages, in the opinion polls and turn them into seats, just look at what this is what it could look like. Okay. And for me, the significant elements are, if you look at the first of all, this is by party. So I'm trying to just get my eyes around this one here. And what it shows is that the across the piece there, you can see that in all these different opinion polls, the numbers are pretty favorable for the Reform Party. But I think, Jed, there's another poll there that breaks it down into the likely projected seats. And while we're trying to find that, the projected seats takes those percentages and basically just splits them. And what it says is, well, based on this share, Reform would come in with about 270 seats, Labour would have about 230 seats, and the Tories would have about 43 seats. On 43 seats, what's that? That's not a party. And that's the fate that awaits Tories. That's why they're putting stories out on a Sunday saying, oh, Nigel Farage wants to get closer to us. He wants to, it's in actually one of my substacks on it, Jet. You can find the actual figures I'm talking about. But what it does demonstrate is the Tories are going to be torn apart, and it couldn't happen till a worse bunch. I'm delighted that the Conservatives are going to, end up in not third place, but about fourth place. They'll be behind the Lib Dems. So you're going to have Reform, Labour, Lib Dems, Tories, Monster Raving Loony Party. That's roughly how it's going to stack out. So, I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? So I think there's something like panic affecting the Conservatives. And so that's where you're going to get all these strange stories like Nigel Farage makes overtures to Kemi Badenoch. Nigel Farage found begging Kemi Badenoch. Now, based on my own social media, I mean, I put out this tweet. Would you like to see the Conservatives and the Conservatives and Reform align? The answer was very clear. No, absolutely not. And I get it. It wasn't me that was wanting it, by the way. Reform voters want to vote Reform. They don't want the Tories near them. They're worried, in fact, what might happen if you got the Conservatives aligning with them. So I think many Conservatives, I mean, there are some decent Conservatives. We shouldn't just, write them all off. Oh yeah, this was the map of the UK. uh, based on projections by constituency. So if we scroll that up, you can see there's Scotland actually. You can see what Scotland looks like. And what you see is that Reform gather seats and the SNP gather seats, and Labour just lose seats. So it's not looking too good for Labour. Even Scotland, it's staggering. This is the Stormer effect. Buyer's remorse. I think all those Scots that wanted Labour have actually gone, oh God, maybe we don't want Labour after all. So anyway, yeah, that's fine, Jay. We just set that to one side. Those numbers are too distracting. Yeah, I think that the thing is that the Conservatives are panicking because they see the cliff coming. They might get rid of Badenoch, by the way. It's not impossible. I think there's whispers. I hear whispers in the air about she's not done a good enough job. And then we have people. I did a Substack in this today, or no, a podcast in this. Fraser Nelson, the intrepid columnist and political commentator, he said, "Well, we have to stick with her. She mightn't be getting it right, but we have to stick with her. There's no alternative," said Fraser Nelson. That's why no one should pay any attention to Fraser Nelson. Honestly, the mainstream media is dead. If you want a proper opinion, informed opinion, come here. Come to the alternative media. At least we'll give it to you for what it is. But this is Fraser Nelson's wisdom that we need to stick with Kemi, even though she mightn't get it right. We need to stick with her. Maybe he's a deep state operator who wants to see the Conservatives destroyed. I don't know. But I think, keep calm and follow. That was a pod. Yeah, I did a podcast on it. Keep calm and follow Kemi. Yeah, imagine that sort of advice when they're heading for 43 seats at the next general election. Keep calm. They won't keep calm, by the way, because even though they only have about 121 MPs at the moment, if those 121 MPs, they don't want to lose their jobs. So they'll sacrifice anybody who gets in the way. And hello, James Jameson, by the way. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks so much for coming along. It's good when we put this out on YouTube, even though I despise YouTube, because a lot of you folks seem to like YouTube as a means to watch this. So that's fine, by the way. I'll try and it's all about subject matter. If I keep the subject matter relatively vanilla, then it means I can put it out here on YouTube as well as Facebook, as well as the traditional platforms. Well, look, I wanted this one to last for around about half an hour or so, so I've gone a bit more than that. But I just wanted to sort of tackle the topic, as it were, specifically on reform and the Conservatives. So just so that there's no ambiguity in anybody's mind, I don't want to see any link up between them. I think people like Suella Braverman should leave the Conservatives and join Reform. Jed says, "Are you doing more lives like this?" Yes, you're going to see more of this stuff, possibly less of the interview kind of stuff. The balance, but I think I maybe overbalanced it one way. So I'm back to doing what I did at the beginning. This is the punk version of the David Vance show. It's just me. And so hopefully, I hope you like this return to the original scene of the crime shows, where it's just me chatting. And of course, don't forget, every Thursday on our podcast, we do a live show with Jed and other friends like Adrian, and it's always a good hour and a half of chat on a Thursday night. So I'm trying to get the balance. I mean, the podcasts, they're always there. Honestly, even I say so myself, some of the content I do is quite good over there. I've put one out on St. Patrick's Day without the Irish. Hope you enjoyed that one. Give that a listen and see if you figure, because guess what? The Irish Prime Minister, Micheál Martin, is still waiting on his invite to St. Patrick's Day in the White House. I'm loving that. Trump is absolutely tickling him. Trump's saying, well, maybe I'll send you it, but maybe not. So it's really good. It's really good to see. James Jameson says the cultural pendulum is swinging. You're absolutely right, James. And we should enjoy this, because we've endured so much over, particularly the last 4 or 5 years, where it's not been easy to be in this position or your position. But as always with the universe and the way things work, and if you believe God's in control, things come around, and thus they have, So I hope to be able to bring it to you on Monday evenings in this format with the help of my producer, Jed, and we can bring up lots of content on different topics. But this reform conservative thing is fundamental. I'm with all of you who have seen all over my social media saying, we don't want to know what, we don't want Boris Johnson. We want nothing to do with the Tories. I hear you. I see you. I agree with you. As I say, let the Bravermans, who she's not too bad, and maybe a couple of the others come across if they want. Andrea Jenkins has done that, for example, in Lincoln. And that would be probably welcome. But by and large, I'm afraid, we know the Conservatives in their true colours, and we don't want them anymore. Sorry, game over. So look, yes, Northern Monkey, I can confirm Chad will make an appearance every now and again. More than welcome to do so. But I just wanted to try this one out tonight, just solo. So I hope you all understand that. And I hope you've enjoyed it in this particular format. Bit different than normal. But hey, life's all about change. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do as well. So do check out my daily Substacks. Do check out my daily podcasts. Do check out my X if you want to laugh. It's all happening over there. And as I say, hope to bring you the live show that we did in London back on the 30th of January. I hope to make that available to everybody. And that's going to be just, as I say, one circumstance, family circumstances in a particular person's life may become a bit easier. So look, that's it from me and Jed for tonight. And I'll return tomorrow. Some good Substacks already on their way to you tomorrow morning. Do check out the Substack. Why haven't you subscribed to it? If you enjoy my stuff, you definitely should go there. Right, as I said, so that's it for tonight from us. And thank you so much for listening. Good night, everybody.